Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to the developer community here. It's a community that's very close to my heart, a group that I worked with for over 10 years at Zebra. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the new strategy that Zebra has focused in on the cloud, enabling developers, and the way that we're really trying to give you more tools to help you do more as you're building out your software and to add more value to your customers. So let me share my screen here and we'll be able to dive in here. All right. So as BB said, during this COVID time, we're all having some challenges. Maybe someone's going to be able to hear my son playing with his orchestra rehearsal in the background. If so, sorry about that, but maybe it'll calm you down as you're enjoying your breakfast, lunch, dinner, wherever you may be around the globe. So as we dive in here, so my name's Dan Qualian. I'm leading our data services, and that's tied in with something many of you may have heard of called Zebra Savannah. What I'm going to do is kind of outline our strategy, what we're trying to do, the problems in the market we're working to solve, and how that's tied in specifically with you, the developers. My talk's going to be a little higher level, talking about what some of the offerings we have, the customer pain points and use cases we're working to solve. And then in some of the follow-up sessions, we have Stephen diving in on some of the print areas, Ben's focusing in on RFID, and Robin's going to focus in on some of the mobile computers and the device health side of things. And just giving you that deeper how-to view, layering in deeper into what I'm going to go through here. So overall, when Zebra looks at our landscape, who do we work with? Well, we're working with enterprises most of the time or oftentimes across an entire supply chain. And when you look at this whole ecosystem, you see from the beginning of a product's inception in manufacturing, it's given a digital voice through a Zebra printer. And then as that item is working its way through the supply chain, at different steps, it's getting additional tags, whether it's an RFID tag, visual tags, it's being scanned with a scanner, with an RFID reader, with a Bluetooth Low Energy for location, every step of the way going through this. And Zebra is there each part of this step. But when we talk to our customers, they're saying, that even if all of this is part of one organization, that they greatly struggle to be able to track those assets as they're flowing through this workflow. And then when we look at across multiple organizations, it becomes incredibly challenging. And one of the things we've seen through COVID, some of the studies that Zebra has done and that we've been reading around the industry, is that the needs for the distancing, for people relying more on e-commerce, relying more on technology, that a lot of the acceleration of these tracking systems and the adoption of e-commerce has been accelerated by at least 10 years beyond what it was going to be through normal progression. And so this need for this visibility is becoming more and more important, both to our customers that we're both targeting, but also to us as consumers. I don't want to necessarily go into a store anymore, but I do want to know when I'm buying a good, is it in stock? If it's not in stock, how long is it going to take to get there? I mean, I can tell you personally, for me, I've been getting into a lot of outdoors activities. So that means for me, I've started kayaking and doing a lot of fishing. Well, I went and I bought a fish finder, and on my fish finder, I had to buy some parts. Well, little did I know that on August 12th, when I ordered it, those parts actually weren't in stock. And so as I'm waiting and waiting for these to come, I ended up waiting. I received them last week. So it took 2 months for me to get these items, but it was just a black hole. There was no visibility into what was going on. Similarly, I bought a kayak and it's the same thing. They said, we're having production issues, expect a 6-week delay and then potentially 4 weeks for shipping. And so again, I have this black hole. And as a consumer, that's not where I want to be. And so what our job is to help our end users be able to empower their customers so they can have visibility into what's going on, what they can expect, where things are going through this entire supply chain. So that's something that really triggered Zebra as we were looking at what should we be doing with our cloud philosophy. And that's why Zebra built Zebra Savannah, which is our internal cloud enablement platform. What we're able to do through Zebra Savannah is to have each and every one of Zebra's devices, so our printers, mobile computers, RFID readers, scanners, every one of them connected to the cloud so that we can either view those devices and the data generated by them easily through the cloud, or any of the information flowing through them. So what that means is when that label is printed by the printer and put onto an asset, and then as that asset is moving through a warehouse and scanned by a scanner, it's put onto a truck and the truck ships it to a store. Through every one of those steps, through this cloud enablement of Savannah, we can share that access of that information so that people can easily have access to it, that we're aggregating that information, but not just giving data for data's sake, because we all know that there's so much data out there that we need to help add greater insights into what that data means, giving the right data at the right time, and helping people understand what insights and actions should occur based on those. And that's where the data services fit. So Zebra Savannah is our platform that we've built, but the data services are the APIs, the way that we're exposing that information out to you, to our developer community. And this is something Zebra is really focusing on, having an API first mentality. So we are doing this building some of our own applications. So we have a proximity application that we launched to try to help organizations as they're understanding where their workers are, who they've been in contact with, something that can tie in with COVID. And this is something that we used building off Savannah, using some of our APIs, and now we have this, this solution or middleware solution. Similarly, if we're looking at our Visibility IQ offer, a user interface to be able to track the health of your mobile computers or printers, this solution is built off this as well. And looking specifically at that Visibility IQ, that's a user interface, a dashboard where people can view this information. But our customers were saying, I want to be able to pull that information into my system so I can trigger smarter actions. And so now we're working to take those same APIs that we're using to build those solutions and expose them out for you, for our developers, so you can start taking advantage of that and building that into your applications. So again, just kind of going through, why are we doing this? Well, we want to make it as seamless as possible to access the data from our devices and coming through our devices. This in no way means that we're getting rid of any of the device level SDKs, but we do want to add cloud native functionality as well. We're then making it so that we're offering these out in REST APIs so that you can use them across any platform that you're working to develop. Another challenge that we have heard consistently from our developer community is when you're working across Zebra's portfolio, across the printers, mobile computers, scanners, RFID readers, it can be a challenge because Zebra internally has different groups. They're prioritizing different ways to interface with those devices. And so part of our job here on the data services team is to work as almost a portfolio manager across all of Zebra to say, if our developers want to engage with batteries of our devices, how can we find common interfaces to make it easier for these developers as they're working across our entire portfolio? And so that's another big piece of what we're working to do. So ultimately, as you're now looking across an entire supply chain ecosystem, our vision is that we can have Zebra Savannah and the data services providing access to that information as a hub to help connect all of this information and make it easier for you to build out your solutions. So next, I want to dive in a little bit deeper on what specifically do we have that you can take advantage of right now. Um, because overall, a strategy is something nice, but you want to take action. Your developers, you want to use these. And as we go through the day today, you'll see that each of the areas on the left, we're going to dive into more deeply, highlighting the functionality and how to use each and every one of those. So on this slide, this is the overarching portfolio of data services. The items on the left-hand side, cloud enablement APIs, are looking at that component I was talking about of cloud enabling Zebra's devices and the access to that information. Visibility IQ, that's the API access to the devices, the device health, the analysis of that health, and some of even the service contracts and repair information around the mobile computers. This is something we have accessible in the market today, but this is by request. And Robin's going to dive a little bit into that later on, and I'm going to give a more of an overview of some of the features and functionalities. Cloud Connect for RFID is looking at Zebra's fixed RFID readers, cloud enabling them so that you can remotely manage and monitor those devices, but also so that the RFID tag information can be sent to you remotely into the cloud. Send file, and Ben's going to go through that one. Send file to printer is looking at Zebra's printers and the capability, as it says in the title, to be able to send a file down to that printer through a REST API. So whether that's going to be an actual print job, or if you're looking to send a configuration of a graphic, a font, other information to that printer, you can send that down. And then the value-added APIs. These are focused on things that are a little less device dependent. Barcode generator, the ability to create the graphical image of a barcode dynamically through an API. Barcode Intelligence references 6 different industry databases so that if you're scanning a UPC code, for example, you can then look that product up and have over 30 different data points around what it is, the dimensions of it, the weight, the description, product photography, etc. And then lastly, blockchain is looking at how do we take prints, scans, RFID reads, and more easily allow them to be logged onto a blockchain ledger or read off so that we can add some additional confidence and security around what types of transactions are going on across that supply chain. So with that being said, let me dive in on the first one. And really, actually, before I do that, just wanted to highlight, so this is, Zebra Savannah is something that we launched over a year ago in June of 2019. And in that time, we've seen some very strong adoption here. And so if people are interested, we will be sharing this information, but on our Zebra Savannah page on zebra.com, you can see we have 2 different case studies, one with Stay Linked, focused on how they've been able to use the data services powered by Zebra Savannah. On the right-hand side, you can see Dottle and how they've been using Zebra Savannah and the data services as well. And in the middle, just wanted to highlight a couple of the very large corporations that are currently using data services in Savannah today. So we don't have permission to use the company's names, but one of the world's largest retailers today has over 300,000 mobile computers that are actively connected. They also have nearly 150,000 printers that are actively connected. And what they're doing, they're using these to manage these devices, to understand what's going on. And I'll dive in a little bit deeper as I talk about our Visibility IQ APIs. And then also, one of the largest multinational delivery services is actively using this in some of their warehouses. And they've been able to help divert their forklift drivers more efficiently to make sure that they're picking up the right packages, they're bringing them to the right spot. And that 17% increase was something significant for them to allow them to drive more efficiencies in their business. All right, so our visibility IQ APIs. These APIs are really focused in on looking at, initially, we focused in on our mobile computers. So how are these mobile computers being used? What's the health of them? What's the usage of them? And how can we then trigger smarter usage and patterns of usage within an organization? So to power this, Zebra has an agent that ships on every one of our mobile computers. It's called our Zebra Data Services agent. This agent, if a customer enables it, has a capability to send over 250 data points up to Zebra Savannah. And these are anonymized, so Zebra is not actively looking at what each of our customers are doing. They're anonymized. But what we're able to do is to provide our customers, or if the customer grants a partner access, the partners access to this information so that they can start giving more insights on how best to manage and use these devices. So what does this actually mean? So when we look at the interface with some of these devices, many of you today are probably using our EMDK, or on the print side, the Link-OS SDK. Those development kits are always going to be there, and we maintain those. So that's kind of this base layer of what we're looking at. What we're doing through Zebra Savannah and through this agent I mentioned is we're able to collect and access this information in the cloud to be able to provide that to others. And with this agent, we're actually collecting more information than what is accessible through the EMDK. And then we have this third layer, the value add layer, where we're performing some analysis of these. And I'm going to dive into some of the examples of those in the next slide so that we can give more insights into the usage, the patterns, and actions that need to be taken. And then particularly when we look at visibility IQ, and even on the print side, there's a Printer Profile Manager Enterprise cloud version, we're able to present this information in two ways. First being a user interface. So that's what people think of when they think of visibility IQ or Printer Profile Manager Enterprise. But now we're also offering up these APIs. And these APIs, as I mentioned, they allow you to pull that information into your application so you can help direct actions and users for what they're supposed to do. And why are we going this route for APIs? Well, it's so that we can really expand out who that target market is. When we look at a user interface, for a developer, there's very limited use for that. But when you can access that information directly, that expands that up and provides more value to you. So what do we actually have in here, and how are we offering this up? So in the last slide, we had those three different layers. If we look corresponding with that second layer, that's what's on the bottom half of this slide, the aggregated data. So amongst that, we're looking at information around the software applications on the mobile computer. So we're giving you information around application not responding. So within the application, which applications are running, which versions are they, and how many events and when those events are going, when those apps are crashing or being locked up. Similarly, the usage of the application, which applications are on there and how are they being used. And then in the next few slides, I'm going to go through some of the use cases. Why do people want this? What are some of our customers actively using these for? Similarly, on the battery side, people are interested in knowing the events and the status. So status is looking at, what is currently going on? Is it charging? Is it discharging? How much charge currently is in the battery? And then how many times has it been charged and discharged? So that we can then start looking at things as we look at the analytics layer around remaining useful life. And then on the device side, device disruption is looking at device reboots. And then we separate out whether they're user initiated or system initiated. So you can look at crashes and reboots of the device. Device information tells you what your make, your model, the serial number, the operating system version. There's a whole host of information in there to better understand and compare what one device is doing and what it is versus others. And then device utilization gives you insights into when a screen is on and being interfaced with, so that you can get an insight into how much people are actually interfacing with and using that device itself. So then we look at the analytics layer. And when we're packaging this and putting this together, we're actually selling this so that you can get just that aggregated data information, or you can get everything on the screen, the analytics and the aggregated information together. And then also, which something that may not be of as much interest to the developers here, but we're also selling this so you can get just the APIs, you can get the visibility IQ user interface together with the APIs, or just that user interface. So diving in on these analytics APIs, you're looking at our device health. So we have smart battery health. That gives information tying in some analytics around those battery events and status. So we're now on our third iteration of our algorithm, evaluating remaining useful life of the batteries. What this tells our customers is how many more days are they expected to have that battery be able to last its full shift. So if you have a battery that has been charged, X number of times, it reduces the long-term life of that battery. So we're not necessarily talking about it has a 75% charge, but we're saying even if it's at 100% charge, that battery is expected only to last 6 hours. And so again, this is an area where you pull that in. Today in our user interface, we just have that chart saying that. But what we want to do is have you tie that in so that you can notify a worker to pull that battery out of inventory, and that a new one maybe needs to be purchased to replace the old one. Critical battery events focuses in on when there's some errors or issues in that battery. So not just the amount of charge, but sometimes there's faults and other types of issues. In terms of availability, this is the out of contact and total devices. These are things that our customers are using to help understand what their total fleet is, the utilization, but then also trying to make sure that they can prevent loss of their devices. So unfortunately, we find that many of our larger companies that we work with actually don't have the best insight into the number of devices they have and how they're being used. By being able to trace that out of contact, which also ties in with the last known location, they've been able to significantly reduce the loss of devices, both from just being misplaced. Let's say, a worker likes to store a device in a certain place, kind of hide it there, and then the battery dies. Where was it last? They can use that to find it. But also when store associates know that the organization has that ability to know that last known location, it's been able to reduce the number that are leaving the stores. In fact, we had one customer who was analyzing it, and they were able to see their workers had to keep them inside the four walls, and they saw one device driving down the highway and able to identify, when things were starting to walk away and leave their operations. Total devices, as I mentioned, is also there to help focus in on that overall utilization. How many devices are there? And then tying that in with some of the utilization so we can make sure they're getting the optimal usage out of the investment that they had. Application analytics, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Just trying to look at which applications are on there, how they're being used. And then devices and operations, similar. Device baseline analytics actually allows you to identify outlying devices, looking at what are some of the common metrics across a full deployment, and then which unique devices are standing out in terms of their performance, negatively or positively, so you can help identify areas that may need to be addressed. And that may tie in with a device, but it also can give insight into some of the workflows and the usage patterns so that you could identify better optimization. Maybe there's certain stores who are running some of their processes more effectively than others. And then the last column here really is focused in on the support and the entitlement within that. So for some of these larger organizations, they do get a large, if you have tens or hundreds of thousands of devices, you get a large number of devices that may have some form of issue. So understanding if there's a support ticket or a repair ticket, where are things at in that life cycle to be able to trace more effectively. So how is this actually being used today? Well, we have one ISV that we're working with named eLocker. They have electronic lockers. And I talked about some of the loss prevention. This is an area that they focus in on. So they're looking at, they have these electronic lockers where some of their large customers in the shipping space are using the devices and locking them up. They then have a system where they can identify user association with being able to check out a device and tie that together. Well, one of the big things that they're working on is really understanding that battery health information, because what their customers have found is that a lot of the reasons why devices aren't making it back is because people find their favorite device, the ones that have good batteries, and then they hold on to them. And so by identifying better some of those battery patterns, that's one way to reduce that. Tying that in with their user identification system has made significant productivity increases, as well as loss decreases of the devices themselves. So another customer we're working with, or ISV I should say, is Wizzy EMM. So Wizzy they have a management pane of glass focused in on Android devices. And what they've been able to use our data services for, one that I didn't highlight because it's only offered up to EMMs, is the distribution of Zebra's operating system on Android, Lifeguard over the air. And that is a data service and something that we manage through Zebra Savannah. So Wizzy's using that so that as they're working across their customers' fleets of devices, they can manage the operating system level on all those devices. But similarly, they're working with us to better understand that remaining useful life of the battery. That's an area that's really stood out for them as well, similar to eLocker. And so in their EMM platform, they're able to bake some of that functionality in and have an additional analytics package around battery information. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight one other use case that we've been working with another ISV selling into a major retailer in the UK. And this retailer, their workers have been running into what they believe are problems on their devices, sending those devices in for repair, and then Zebra's been finding that there's no actual issue or no fault found with the device, and then shipping them back. And the challenge that runs is that the store is without a device for a certain amount of time, and there's extensive shipping costs involved with sending devices back and forth. And so what we're doing with this software company is trying to reduce the number of no fault founds so that we can make sure that the devices are running properly. We can reduce the number of issues. We can reduce the amount of time the devices are that are out of the store and increase the efficiency of their workers. So what we're doing is we're using device information to verify what operating system is on every device. And if those devices are not up to date with their operating system, they're baking in their process to make sure that gets updated. We're also checking on the software applications to do the same thing. Make sure that the latest software versions are up to date. And again, this is something that when Zebra brings these devices in for repair, these are some of those standard processes they do. So what we're trying to do is enable these customers to follow some of these best practices so that they can do some of the testing and debugging ahead of time, or even in the background, some of this information can be done off shift time so that it doesn't have to disrupt anything. We're also analyzing the amount of time that devices are rebooting so we can identify problem devices, and doing the same as well with the software applications. And this is one we're still in process, so we don't have some of that data in terms of the increases in drives and efficiency we're working towards, but we're very excited, as is the customer, on really helping to drive some improvements there. So again, that's the end of our Visibility IQ APIs. I believe Robin's going to be diving a little bit deeper, showing some more information around what we're how to use some of those APIs. I wanted to next focus on Cloud Connect for RFID. So this is an offer focused in on our Zebra's fixed RFID readers. So it's our FX 7500 and 9600 readers. So last year was a banner year for RFID. RFID is a technology we have been talking about for well over a decade, and it always seemed like next year was going to be the year of RFID. And 2019 actually was that year. We saw significant growth. And as I was talking earlier about some of these changes we've seen through COVID with pushing more through e-commerce, needing greater visibility into that supply chain, RFID is a perfect technology to help give near real-time visibility into the location of assets and inventory. But one of the challenges that RFID has always had is some of the cost. And that particularly resides with fixed RFID. So fixed RFID, you're going to have a stationary receiver that's identifying tag movement. One of the challenges here is that there's so much information with these readers and the antennas out there constantly reading, pulling in all this tag information, that every one of them or every location needs to have on-premise servers to help manage all of that information that's coming through. So what we've worked to do in Cloud Connect for RFID is partnering with the RFID team is now in all new software that comes on the RFID readers, we have this capability built in. Now, to take full advantage of it, there is a sellable service, but this is something embedded within the software on these devices. And what this capability allows is for cloud native connectivity that opens us up so that you can remotely manage and monitor and configure those readers. And you can also receive all of your tag information and store that through the cloud. And I'm going to walk through a little bit more deeply here around the different components. But just a quick highlight, the three components, and in this, each of these can be purchased separately. It's not, you don't need to get everything. We have the first thing, which is cloud data transmission. That's taking RFID tag information in the events, allowing you to subscribe to receive that information. Cloud data storage is Zebra's ability to store and host that information for you. So ultimately, that subscription of the cloud data is going to Zebra's cloud, and then we provide access to that information through APIs that allow you to access based on time, based on reader or EPC code. So to specify and clarify the difference there, cloud data transmission, if you have your own server, you have your own cloud, whatever you want, you can send that data wherever you want. Cloud data storage, Zebra is hosting that for you, a service we provide. And then lastly, that management and monitoring, all of this through REST API so that you can understand what the health is, you can configure, send information down to that device and better manage it. So today I mentioned when you are, I guess previous to Cloud Connect, when you're looking at a deployment of fixed readers, you would need to have a server attached with each of these. So as you look at this, you can see that the costs scale up quickly with a deployment like this. And then there's other layers to try to access all the information across a full deployment. What we are doing now is adding greater intelligence to these readers so that we can directly connect them to our Zebra Savannah Cloud, both on a management plane and a data plane, or you can do one or the other, and then you can then pull that information into your cloud app. So why are we doing this? Well, one, you can significantly cut costs. You don't need to have that on-premise server. Some of the estimates that we've heard from our customers and partners are that they have to spend between $10,000 and $20,000 a year managing those servers. So think of a use case where we have a retailer. In their distribution center, they have readers over every dock door. They can have a server there, they can maintain that. but now they want to track that inventory as it's going out the door and being received by a store. If they have hundreds of stores or more, the cost to then put those readers at each of those stores scales significantly. With this solution, it now opens up new use cases for RFID and for that better tracking and near real-time visibility that our customers are looking for that I was mentioning at the beginning of my talk. So one of the most important things to note on this solution is I talked earlier about the massive amount of information that goes back and forth traditionally from these readers to those servers. How can we then have this be a cloud viable solution? Well, we're doing that by adding much more intelligent filters and modes onto the readers. So Ben's going to dive into this a little bit more, but essentially, we don't need to send every single read to the cloud. We now have the ability, so if you want to identify when new tags come into range of the antenna or the reader, you can then trigger that event. This tag now is within range. And traditionally, the way the readers would work is that as that tag stays within range, every millisecond or however frequently they're pinging, it's going to be sending that information that the tag's still here, it's still here, it's still here, it's still here. With this solution, you can just say the tag entered the range, and then you don't need to receive another event until that tag has left range. And so by doing that, we can dramatically cut down on the amount of traffic that's occurring through this solution. So ultimately, what we're working to do is, as I mentioned, reduce the cost of deployment. So I talked about the lower cost of infrastructure, but the amount of setup and the need to manage and maintain devices also scales up. So if you have remote locations, you now have much more that can be done remotely, making it so you don't need people on site as much. We're also, by creating the webhook subscriptions for the cloud data transmit, as well as the APIs for the data storage and the management and monitoring, we're adding more detailed information to cut out some of the work that our partner community had to do. We're trying to make it easier for you so you can focus your development efforts on some of the other types of backend integration or line of business areas that you specialize in. We also want to make it easier. I was talking with a customer, a multinational customer, where they have deployments all across the globe in multiple regions. And they now really struggle to pull that information into a centralized location or to have a centralized view of their devices. And a solution like this was greatly resonating with them, and they were very excited to move forward. And then we have some additional analytics. These are things that we're going to continue to grow, but one of the main things we do have is a GS1 decode. So the EPC standard for encoding tags is something that everyone uses. The GS1 is a method for people to take some of the information around the manufacturer, what the asset is, other information like that, and encode that into the tag. What we have is a service that's running on our cloud data transmit and the cloud storage so that we can decode that information to make it easier for you to see multiple fields so that you can analyze that more effectively. And then, as I mentioned, also in our cloud data storage, the APIs we have there allow you to analyze based on time, the reader, or the EPC tag, the asset that it is. So one question that we do get is around the difference between this Cloud Connect offer and another offer that we have called FX Connect. And as you can see in this chart, FX Connect really is more just a data mover. It's a way to funnel information off of the reader to a location that you have. Through Cloud Connect, we've gone much deeper, added more intelligence and more control over the reader itself, so that you can do more of what you want to do. So it's gone a much lower level of interface to help you out. And I think another area to point out, Zebra also has some areas focused on broader location solutions that we call MotionWorks Enterprise. Cloud Connect is really more of an underlying technology. So Cloud Connect doesn't compete with our MotionWorks Enterprise. Cloud Connect is actually an underlying technology that MotionWorks Enterprise team is leveraging as they're working to cloud enable their full location suite that they have. So I hope that helps understand some of those differences. The last thing I'd want to highlight here is we look at the management and monitoring. There's a lot of different areas that we dive in on those. Ben's going to highlight some of those later in his session, but the ability to control an output port, to look at some of the LEDs, to see a lot of different settings and where we're at and change them is what we're focused in on. And the last one I'd like to highlight is the firmware management. So on this, we are actually hosting those software files in the cloud, just like we do on the Android operating system side for Lifeguard. And that makes it much easier for you to be able to update the software layer on these devices. You don't have to go to zebra.com, download that, and distribute that out yourselves. We're hosting that, and through the API, managing that distribution. So one thing, this is a newer offer for us. We're actively looking for more companies to test this out. So that's something, if you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to either myself, but more importantly, I would say your account managers, so as you develop interest. But I also wanted to highlight that in EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, Africa, we are running a competition that is actually the registration opened yesterday. So this is only open to our EMEA partners, members of Partner Connect, whether ISVs or solution or reselling partners. But in this, we're really asking people to play around with this technology, embed it into your solution, and then we have this competition. So we really want to make sure people are engaged, so they've invested in some great rewards. So some fun things like an Xbox or a drone or Google Home, but also some great promotion for your company as well. So that opportunity for first place, host a joint webinar with Zebra. This is something we're really trying to help you get the word out of your solution so that you can find more customers and more ways to promote that. Second place, get a blog written by yourselves and distributed out through Zebra to get more attention. So again, for this, I do have a link that's in the top there, a shortcut that is through our partner portal. So that's something that helps tie that in with our partner community. But if you go there, you can register for this. So really, we're focused in on the creativity. What can you develop with Cloud Connect? So again, this is focused on our FX 7500 and 9600 readers. We do have a limited number of these for those European partners if you don't have one. So if you register, and it's on a first come, first served basis. So if you register today and you don't have a reader, you can request one. But what we want you to do, sign up, get access to these APIs and the readers, start understanding what you can do and how this enables you to provide more effective, low-cost systems out to our customer base. All right, so that's it for RFID. Next, I'm going to walk through a few other of the different data services we have. On the blockchain side, I mentioned this earlier, but what we're doing here is we're really trying to make it easier for companies when you are printing a label, which is giving an identity to an asset, to have that logged onto a blockchain ledger. And why do people do blockchain? Blockchain is really looking at establishing trust, taking information, putting it onto a ledger that cannot be altered so that people from multiple areas that maybe don't have trust or need a better way to gain trust can have access to that. So blockchain solutions are oftentimes very complicated. And what we're trying to do is to simplify that process of storing information and recalling that information off that ledger. And one of the things that we've done is we have partnered with an organization called IOTA, IOTA. And this organization is a nonprofit, and they're very heavily focused on the enterprise space. And they see the value across these supply chains of establishing that trust and that sharing of information. And what I'd like to do now is play a short video that highlights what Zebra and IOTA are doing. So I'm going to switch over to this, and hopefully this is going to work properly and people will be able to hear this.
Supply chains are the arteries of the world economy. But hampered by a lack of real-time data shared between supply chain parties and the paper-based processes used to manage them, they're not flowing well. Inefficiencies such as customs delays cost around $4 trillion a year, while fake goods account for 3% of trade. In our always-on economy, there must be a better way to ensure provenance and speed the flow of goods. Introducing IOTA Tangle, the first open-source distributed ledger that, while similar to blockchain, is more scalable and efficient. IOTA works in tandem with Zebra Savannah's cloud data platform. Through Zebra Savannah, an app can send a scan or RFID event directly to the IOTA Tangle by a single API call, where it's securely held and tamper-proof. Capturing the data requires minimal or no changes to existing processes, and it provides all supply chain agents with a real-time, immutable view of progress. Take a new tire. An RFID tag is attached to it and recorded to certify its batch, origin, and quality. In the warehouse, the RFID tag is recorded to confirm custody, while new data is added including location and warehouse ID. The delivery driver scans the code to confirm transfer of custody, while GPS data can be used to track progress. At customs, the RFID tag is scanned to access certificates and quickly clear the tire for import. At the garage, it's registered using a fixed RFID reader. And when fitted, a further scan updates the car's log with the make, date, and tire specs. The customer also reads the code to confirm she has a certified tire that will keep her family safe. From protecting consumers and fighting counterfeit products to enabling just-in-time logistics, faster product recalls and compliance, IOTA and Zebra Savannah is the all-new way to accelerate your supply chain.
All right. So I hope that that gave a really great overview of what we're working to do with IOTA. Today, this is not a data service that's available yet. We're very close to getting this live in our sandbox. IOTA has been a great partner, and we're really excited about pushing this one forward. So on that one, if you are interested, feel free to reach out to myself, your account managers, and we'll make sure that we notify you once we have that one up and available. All right. So the last one that we have that's tied in with our hardware is send file to printer. So this is one, Stephen's going to be diving in deeper on this, so I'm not going to focus too much on it. But essentially, we've had a lot of requests from our customer base for REST APIs to be able to print. And again, this is not limited to print. It allows you to send any content file down to the printer, whether that's configuration, font, image, etc., PDF, or others. But why do people want this REST API? Well, one is for the cross-platform development. So we have a lot of people that, many of our ISVs need to support Android, iOS, web apps, Windows, Linux, etc. And having a REST API to be able to connect directly to a cloud-based printer really can simplify that development. The other side of it is we have a lot of companies that are doing browser-based apps. And sometimes that connection to the printer, a peripheral device through that browser app can be very challenging. And so the REST API can really help out there. And so that's all I'll say on this one, but excited for Stephen to explain a little bit more and walk through that. So just the last couple data services I wanted to highlight. The first is Barcode Generator. So Barcode Generator, as I mentioned earlier, it simply allows you to create that graphical image of a barcode. Why are we offering this up? Well, Zebra's very well known in the barcode space, and we are actually offering up 103 different barcode symbologies that can be generated and created here. So we're going very deeply and finding some very niche barcodes that some people have struggled to be able to have confidence in generating, creating that barcode themselves. Why are you doing this? Well, this is so that you can embed it in your application, in a web page, etc., for use. So, earlier I mentioned some of our customer case studies, and one was with Doddle. So Doddle's a company out of the UK. They have a global presence, and they're focused in the return space in one of their products. And so they've been using this API so that they can, when a customer is returning a good, generate that barcode that can then be scanned to process that return. So another offer we have is Barcode Intelligence. So I mentioned a lookup, a database lookup, and we have around 6 different databases we're looking up at now. So envision that when this item is being returned, what their goal in their returns platform is to make it so that when an item is returned, it immediately can be added back into inventory so that if a customer comes in and wants to be able to purchase that, they can do so. What they had found was that at times it takes days for a good to actually be fully processed back into inventory. And so to meet our customers' growing needs, they're helping these stores accelerate that. So imagine this use case where someone purchased some medication. They went and now they're returning it. Well, what we're able to do with Barcode Intelligence is to scan that information. So you can have an EAN or UPC code. You can look this good up, and now you can display an image so that you know, okay, this is our infant ibuprofen. You can get a description of it. You can get the dimensions, but also in our Barcode Intelligence, one of the databases we look up in is a recall database. So if this medication has been recalled, we would then notify that and identify that and flag it so that this would not get put back into inventory. Similarly, we have StayLinked, one of our other companies, has been working with some companies in their distribution centers, and they're using this to pull the dimensions and weight so that if there is a heavy package for worker safety, they can flag that and focus on the proper way to lift something. They can recommend that 2 resources associates be flagged to go and move this, or a forklift, as opposed to a single person. So again, looking at Barcode Intelligence, we have this product database that we're looking up on. It looks at UPC codes, EAN codes, and ISBN codes. Again, I think there's around 30 different data points that you can look up and pull back there. We're also looking at the unique device identification database, which is medical devices. That looks at the manufacturing information as well as recall status. Then we have the US Food and Drug Administration recall database that looks at food, pharmaceuticals, medical devices. We have shipping information from the US Postal Service and UPS, and then a vehicle identification number database. So again, you can scan something and our API is automatically detecting which of these which category it would fall into, and then automatically doing that lookup. So overall, that's the entire portfolio of what we've put together for data services and what we have available for you today. I hope you saw something that really resonated with you, that you thought would streamline some of your development, give you easier access to data so that you can help your customers trigger their next best action. if you want to explore more about these, please head on over to developer.zebra.com/APIs, where we have the full list. On the developer portal, if you log in, you'll see access and you can actually interface with and play around with some of these. Alternately, if you don't go to that URL, you can go to our products and platforms and Zebra Data Services, where you can learn a lot more around what we have. So I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to all of you. Again, I hope that something resonated with you and you have interest. I hope that you can follow up and learn more from Stephen, Ben, and Robin about how to use some of these APIs.